Home and Away spoilers. Felicity devastated as Rory confesses. Next week on Home and Away in the UK, Felicity is dealt a cruel blow of reality, as she finally learns the true nature of her new beau Rory. Flick has been enjoying a passionate, whirlwind romance with River Boy gang leader Rory Templeton for the past few weeks, putting her at odds with brother Cash, who has just begun work at Mangrove River police station and heard all about their antics. Cash was particularly concerned after learning that his predecessor Franklin McGrath had crossed the River Boys and wound up dead, with his body dumped in a local dam. Whilst they were the obvious suspects, there was no physical evidence until last week, when wildlife cam footage obtained from the national park placed the car of Rory's sidekick Dingo near the scene of the crime, with Dingo driving and an unseen person in the passenger seat. Cash was able to have Dingo's car impounded. Dingo assured Rory that he had cleaned the car thoroughly, but was worried about a bag of souvenirs he had kept, including McGrath's police ID and the crowbar used to dispose of him. Rory demanded Dingo that get rid of it, which he did by ordering Marley to take care of it, reckoning he owed him a favor. Marley eventually opened the bag and discovered its contents, opting to return it to the River Boys hangout. At the same time, forensics had returned a positive match for McGrath's blood in Dingo's car, and Cash and fellow officers raided the hangout. With Dingo there, alongside the bag, he was arrested on suspicion of murder. Next week, Cash and Joe interview Dingo with his lawyer present, but he doesn't make any comment, nor is he willing to identify the second person seen in his car. When Rory hears of the latest developments from Marley, he rushes out to call some of the boys with Flick in pursuit. As Rory tells her what has happened, Flick realizes that Cash had been telling the truth all this time. Rory is determined to sort it out, but Flick points out that there must be compelling evidence against Dingo, in which case there would be nothing he could do. Flick is thrown, however, when Rory tells her a half-truth in that he helped Dingo dispose of the body. Despite Flick's pleas, Rory heads to the police station and announces his intention to make a statement. "Oh, let me guess," Cash taunts. "Your mate's innocent." Rory confirms that is correct. Dingo didn't kill McGrath. He did. In the interrogation room, Rory reveals what really happened. McGrath had been relentlessly surveilling the River Boys, driving Dingo to the brink. Rory wasn't present when the altercation began, but by the time he arrived, McGrath was already unconscious. Knowing McGrath would identify Dingo, Rory made the decision to eliminate him. Cash, now convinced of Rory's guilt, arrests him for the murder. Flick later turns up at the police station demanding to see Rory, insisting on his innocence. At that moment, Rory emerges in handcuffs, his expression devoid of emotion. Felicity begs him to fight the charges, but he walks past her, seemingly resigned to his fate. That evening, Flick is furious with Cash when he returns home, but is stunned when Cash confirms to her that the evidence backs up Rory's story. It was his fingerprints on the weapon. Still in denial, Flick tells Cash that she isn't going to turn her back on the man she loves. And when Cash asks if there's anything he can do to help, she explains that she wants to see Rory. Cash takes Flick back to Mangrove River police station, where Joe tells them they've got 10 minutes before Rory is transferred. Flick is delighted to see Rory, but he pulls back from her attempt to hold his hand across the table, telling her she shouldn't have come back. Flick asks Rory to be honest with her, as she asks him whether he murdered that man. Rory replies with a simple yes, and apologizes before telling Flick that she needs to forget about him. Cash, meanwhile, gets a heartfelt thank you from Joe, who tells him that while he's been a pain throughout the investigation, "We wouldn't have gotten these guys if it weren't for you." Rory is then led out of the station as he's transferred, and as a devastated Felicity watches on, he gives her one final glance back before walking out of her life for good. Elsewhere in Summer Bay, as Harper makes a final decision about her pregnancy, it inadvertently causes a massive shock for Xander. Harper has so far kept her pregnancy the result of a one-night stand with Tane a secret to all but sister Dana, and is still making the decision as to whether she goes ahead. Next week, Harper is still keeping her options open, but is having a particularly tough time with morning sickness. When Xander invites Dana to lunch, she makes an excuse so she can head home with Harper. Xander in turn offers to make lunch at the beach house, an offer Dana cannot refuse. When Xander invites Dana to lunch, she makes an excuse so she can head home with Harper. Xander in turn offers to make lunch at the beach house, an offer Dana cannot refuse. Harper has that morning received a lot of pregnancy-related supplements from the chemist. And when Dana accidentally knocks Harper's bag off the kitchen counter, Xander spots a bottle of folic acid tablets. Without thinking, Dana covers for Harper by saying they're her own, claiming that she's just trying to be healthy with all her night shifts and lifeguarding duties. When the three later head to Salt and Xander starts his shift, Harper explains to Dana that she's still unsure as to whether she wants to bring a child into the world, particularly after their own tough upbringing with their addict parents. Dana decides that, in solidarity with her big sis, she's going to go alcohol-free for the entire day. And so when Xander brings over the usual order of 2 red wines, Dana declares that they're on a detox and would prefer 2 OJs. Later that evening, knowing that Dana would have her back if Tane for any reason decided he wanted nothing to do with the baby, Harper makes her decision. She's going to keep the baby. Dana is ecstatic, though, as they start to list through the things to look forward to, morning sickness only being the beginning. Little do they realize that Xander is clearing a nearby table and hearing every word. Suddenly the day's events all make sense to him, and as he later stands shell-shocked behind the bar, he tells Rose that he's going to be a dad.
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của Home and Away Spoilers Today. Xin chào.